Well, you get me one more time. David Lusk had a previous engagement. I think he's in a meeting somewhere. I think he told us. I didn't remember that, but there's a lot of things I don't remember anymore. I know y'all don't have that problem. Well, I'm happy to do it. I heard this afternoon that my brother was going to be here, and his wife, for those of y'all who don't know, Laura Oglesby. Robert preached for over 52 years at Waterview in Richardson. He's still on staff there, and so I'm glad to have them here tonight. In fact, I think the congregation, whoever it is, and I'm not asking y'all to tell me because I don't know, but when they upload the DVDs from one Sunday night when I spoke, they put Robert Oglesby's name on my DVD. So I'm not sure, but I'm thinking somebody knows him better than they know me, and I thought I was here longer than he's been here. Well, I think that just goes to point out how well he's probably known. He used to introduce me when I went to Waterview as his elder brother, and so I agreed to that for a number of years. You know, Mitch is going to be talking on Sunday morning about encouragement. He started this morning, so the small groups are going to be talking about encouragement. So as I thought about that, you know, I've told you before, I don't like to go the pathway everybody else wants to go, and so I thought, well, encouragement, where can you get encouragement to start with but at home? And then I thought more about encouragement and where can we get encouragement and get into it? And then I thought about grandchildren. I hope everybody got the message. You're supposed to bring pictures tonight of your grandchildren, and I don't know if you did or not, but that's what we're going to talk about. Now, before we get into it and you get to thinking down that road too far, this is applicable or applicable, whichever way you want to say it. If you have nieces or nephews or cousins, anyone that you've had a relationship with in your family, this kind of message can spread across those relationships, not just grandchildren. Some of you not only are grandparents, but you are great-grandparents. So we want to talk briefly tonight about those things. So I wanted to give you an idea of why I'm speaking on this, and so I had them put my name there. I'm sure that your grandkids call you by name. So I would just ask you just real quickly, succinctly, to tell me, what do your grandkids call you? Give me some names. Mama, Nana, Grammy, Papa, Great Mother. Well, all right. All right, Great Mother. I'm going to move it up here a little bit. Bye-bye. Well, I don't know if I'd take that as a compliment or not. Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye. All right, we'll take that. Well, we get called by a lot of things. Our two girls that are here in this area, when we started having grandchildren, the oldest one was going to name us what she wanted us to call, what they wanted their kids to call us. And the other one didn't have kids, wasn't thinking about having kids, but said, I need to get in on this idea because when mine come along, they're going to call them whatever your kids call them. So they got that worked out ahead of time, which was nice for us because we didn't have to do that. Encouragement then, I think, can start at home, start with the kids, but it can start with the grandkids. When I thought about this, you know, grandparents can range in age from 30, as I understand it, to 103. I don't know if we have any of y'all in the upper echelon here tonight, but you know, that's a long time because once you have grandkids, you always have grandkids, whatever age you have them at. Or as I said, if you have nieces and nephews or cousins or whoever that you were a part in your home, you can think in that way of them also. So I want to talk tonight about what is it, as we look at those grandkids or great-grandkids. This was given to Irene and I. Some of our greatest blessings call us Mama and Papa, and I'm sure you feel that way about whoever it is you're thinking about. You get some blessings from that. Some of you may have some ideas that they're not always blessings, but you know what? When they're not, you can give them back to their parents and send them home. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? Or wasn't it? I don't know where yours are in age-wise. Grandchildren can be from newborns to retirees. So depending on where you started in life, where your grandkids are or your great-grandkids. I want us to take a look, though, as we look at that. We were going through the Garden of the Gods, and these kids were just sitting on the wall there, and I just thought they looked nice, and I'd take a picture of them. For those of you who don't know, those are our grandkids. Picture whoever you're thinking about as being someone in your mind, someone that you can readily bring to mind. Whether it's nieces, nephews, it could even be children that you've taught. It could be someone that you feel really close to and that you've had an impact on, and they've come back to talk to you. So you think about those folks. What does the Bible have to say, at least about grandparents? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children. I think as we start thinking about encouragement, and you think about either now that you're in the process of having grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or if they're already passed and you don't have that relationship anymore, but are you still influencing them in some way? Do you still have opportunities whenever they talk to you that you can still give them encouragement? You can still be of value to them regardless of where they are in their life. The other passage is Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. I'm mainly interested, of course, in the very top part of that. My question to you also now for you to respond to, is it a good thing or a bad thing to leave an inheritance to your children's children? Why would you skip your children and give it to your grandchildren? And what kind of inheritance would he be talking about? What is your thought processes on that passage? It's a what?
It's the message.
Okay, but the inheritance to his children's children. Why would you skip to the next generation? Is there any wisdom in that? Is that a bad idea, a good idea?
Is it a skip, or is it benefiting your children and your children's children?
Okay, could be. You want to expand just a little bit on how it could be a benefit?
Both your godly inheritance, with the teachings, can go through for your children and your grandchildren.
Okay.
And the financial can be the same way. You could
But it's not just financials here.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Who else? Dwayne?
I think this verse is saying that a good man's impact is not just one generation, but two.
Okay. Impact not just one generation, but multiple.
And in contrast to that, it says the sinner's wealth will not even last one generation in most cases.
Okay. Good. Any other comment? One, all right, Robert?
Sometimes your grandchildren are more rewarding to deal with than your children. And sometimes
Okay? The grandchildren are more concerned maybe with about you than your children may be. Okay? All right, well, let's go ahead and move on and talk about some things. How do you communicate with your grandchildren? What is the process that you use, regardless of what age they are or who you're thinking about? How do you communicate with them today? We've had to learn to do this. Text. If we wanted to hear from them, we had to learn to text because they didn't want to answer the phone. Any other way? Is there anyone archaic that still writes letters? You do? Cards or letters? You do? You still write, Wendell? Okay. I would think something like that I've got a lot of cards even that our kids have sent through the years for various things, Father's Day and whatnot, and I've got a drawer full of them. And I'm sure you do too, of cards that you've gotten from people that you're thinking about. And you keep those. A text, I lose text all the time. But having a card, having it in writing may be one way. One of the things that I do in our home, with our environment, our grandkids, is I like to interject humor. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. But it always helps to allay the tensions sometimes that go on within a family. And all of you've got it, so I'm not telling you anything that every family doesn't have. I thought this would be an interesting idea for you grandparents. This is the grandparents' answering machine, or great-grandparents, or however you want to put it. If you are one of our children, dial 1 and then select options from 1 to 5 in the order that you arrive so we'll know who it is. If you need us to stay with the children, press 2. If you want to borrow the car, press 3. If you want us to wash your clothes and do the ironing, press 4. If you want the grandkids or great-grandkids to sleep here tonight, press 5. If you want us to pick up the kids at school, press 6. If you want us to prepare a meal for Sunday and have it delivered to your house, press 7. If you want to come here to eat, press 8. If you need money, dial 9. If you call to invite us to dinner or out to eat, keep talking, we're listening. Those times come very few sometimes when your kids and grandkids get out, and so you want to take advantage of that. I thought I would give you a little humor tonight because I enjoy these kind of things. What a bargain grandchildren are. I give them my loose change, and they give me $1 million worth of pleasure. Grandmothers are just antique little girls. What children need the most are the essentials that grandparents provide in abundance. They give unconditional love, kindness, patience, humor, comfort, lessons in life, and most importantly, cookies. In our house, Irene gives banana bread, and they all like banana bread. They'll hit the door asking for that. A grandfather is someone with silver in his hair and gold in his heart. A grandchild fills a space in your heart that you never knew was empty. I like this one. 2 things I dislike about my granddaughter, the grandmother said. She won't take her afternoon naps, and she won't let me take mine. Grandchildren are the only people who can get more out of you than the IRS. Well, humor, whatever your method of communicating, it is vitally important that you communicate. It's vitally important that you use whatever you have to communicate. Do we have possible times of mishandling our situations? Yeah, we do. All of you are shaking your head. If you're not shaking your head, you ought to. We mishandle it sometimes. Things get really tense and tight, and we say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and we've got to work with it. So possibly mishandling. Let's look at a few of those things. Trying to be a parent. Maybe you've got some examples of this, but I'm not going to ask you to tell us. I don't want you to be embarrassed, but think about it. Have you ever got in a situation where you were having to discipline a grandchild or a great-grandchild, and you got in conflict with your adult daughter or son? Sometimes we take on that role for what, and sometimes we need to. I get that. Sometimes maybe we do have their care and custody, and I understand that. But then sometimes we step in and we try to play the role of the parent when we just ought to let the parent take care of that. So we have to be careful. Maybe that was one way we might mishandle something. So we ought to think about that. Buying your grandchildren's affection. What would that incorporate? What would that look like if you're trying to buy your grandchild's affection? Would you spend money to buy them toys? Do you think your grandkids would ever pit one set of grandparents against another set of grandparents? Surely they wouldn't do that, would they? Y'all are laughing. You've been there.
I have one.
You have, all right.
My grandmother, when Marcy was very little, we'd take her over to visit her, and she'd want Marcy to kiss her. And then she'd give Marcy a cookie. And then we'd go on, you know. Well, the next time we went over there and she wanted a kiss from Marcy, she'd say cookie.
Okay, her granddaughter would go over and she would, the grandmother would give the granddaughter a kiss, and then she'd give her a cookie. Well, she began to say to go over there, I want a cookie, and then you can give me a kiss. The grandkids and great-grandkids or nieces or whoever you deal with, okay, they're pretty smart sometimes to figure out these things and how they get things, and you know that. Of course, maybe some of y'all were like that. I'm not going to get into that. Buying affection, though, you've got to be careful what's going on and pay attention when you're dealing with your grandkids or your great-grandkids. Overindulging the first few. I had this up on the screen, and Chris kind of had a puzzled look. I said, if you've got multiple grandkids and you've done more for the first one or two, do you think the other 3 and 4 and 5 are watching? Yeah, they really are. So you got to be careful. And I know some of y'all have already been down this road, but maybe these are some things that you can tell your adult child that they could look for if they're not paying attention to these things. I would say one of the last one is ignoring boundaries. Boundaries, you know, every house has rules. They're unwritten, but every household that you go into, that we go into, has has unwritten rules. And every kid knows what the rules are when they go to grandma's house or they go to somebody else's house. And they should know the rules in your house. And sometimes we get into those situations, and when we go back to our adult children's house, we don't really know what the rules are anymore because they've changed. And if you've never been there, then you don't understand that. But if you have, then you understand it. Sometimes the rules change, and you don't know really what your place is. And so you ignore boundaries, and you do things that your adult child has said, we want our granddaughter or great-granddaughter in bed at 7:30. And you say, you're at my house, though. You can stay up later. That's ignoring the boundaries. That's going against what their parent has told them that they need to be doing. When they say you don't need to eat too much candy and then you give them candy. That's where you get into conflict. That's where the mother and the daughter or the son get into conflict because we ignore those boundaries, whatever the boundaries are. But you've got to understand what they are, and you may have to ask sometimes what they are. I want to read for you a quote that I came across from James Dobson that I liked. It's about if we ignore these kind of boundaries, what might happen. Our grandchildren live in imperfect homes reared by imperfect parents. Our sons and daughters who are married to our sons-in-laws and daughters-in-laws, all of them are imperfect. Although we all make mistakes raising our children, the good news is that godly grandparents walking with the Lord, we can expect the Lord to use us. Because of our own immaturity with our children, now parents were growing up, we may have disappointed them. But by keeping us alive to enjoy our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren, the Lord is giving us a ministry to help to fill in the gaps of our imperfect child rearing. And I think that's what can happen sometimes. We know that we were imperfect as parents, and we try to make up for it sometimes with our grandkids or great-grandkids, and we get into problems like this because we're trying to do something to make up for something that we believe was deficient. In fact, when we do it so much, we may have our kids come back and say, "Who are you?" Because you didn't act that way when we were growing up. And they see you differently now, which we probably should be different. We grow and we learn as we go through the process. But just be aware of these kind of things. I want to move on back into Timothy 1:5. For I'm mindful of the sincere faith within which you first dwelt, in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I'm sure that it is in you as well. Paul's telling Timothy he has a relationship with this family. He knows the family. But he's giving to Timothy an idea, a goal that I know surely that you feel the same way that I know your grandmother and your mother felt. So he's placing a bar there on Timothy also. With you as the grandmother or the mother, what have you given to your grandchildren, to your children, to your grandchildren, and to your great-grandchildren? What have you passed down to them? It wasn't necessarily money like we talked about a while ago or an inheritance, but what have you passed down to them? What do they have because of being in your family? And some of us get called up short and say, "Well, I didn't do a very good job teaching." And yet others of us have done extremely well. And yet you and I both know that then we still have children or grandchildren who don't stay faithful. We've done all that we thought was right. And we still have those influences that come from outside. And we are in sorrow over that. And we have that happen. And we have it happen in our families. Our culture today, I've got so many things in my head I'd like to say, and I've only got this one time to say it. But our culture today, if you think about all of our kids, all of the kids, the teenagers, are one click away from this thing here that we think is so good right now. They are one click away from any kind of pornography, any kind of thing that they want to get into. You didn't have that. I didn't have that. The dangers of this culture that we've got right now is in our face 24/7. And we're losing the battle in a lot of places. And I think that's why it was so incumbent to talk about what are we doing as parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and nieces or nephews or whoever you influence. What are you doing to influence their life? How do you communicate with them? Watch what your boundaries are. Be careful, but you've got to move on and try to influence through the Word, through what God's done in your life. Let's take a look at some things that we may try to talk about challenges. I asked you how you communicated. Now I'm going to talk to you about what you communicate. You communicate your life. You communicate what God's done for you. You communicate about your faith, of your dedication, the challenges. I have it on good authority. I know when you start talking with your grandkids or great-grandkids, you did not walk both ways to school uphill in the snow. I know you didn't. But all of these stories come out and you like to tell how tough you had it. But you couldn't walk both ways uphill. I don't think you did that. Talk about your challenges. I think if you've got an ear that they're listening, some of them want to hear, what did you do? What was it like when you didn't have lights? Did you have running water in your house? You know, these things that, whatever it is that they like to hear about, talk a little bit, but be very cautious not to overbend their ear. Answer what they're asking, and then you need to move on. Listen intently. Yes, Wendell, comment.
I believe that texting, it limits our communication with anyone. First of all, it's sort of tedious.
It is with a big finger on a little keyboard, I guarantee you.
That's right. But it really does limit a personal letter. And I would say one handwritten. You can communicate more, and I think it's a really reaches a person through that avenue than it does punching a button.
Yeah, very good. I don't know if you could hear it, but he says texting is not as good as writing. It's tedious, one thing, but it'd be hard to imagine today if the Apostle Paul, all he could do was text. We couldn't read it for very long. We wouldn't keep it. The writings that we have, I think writing it probably is, and I don't know that we do it that much anymore because it's quicker, but I don't know that it's the best thing. And I agree with you. We all like to get handwritten notes. When we get any done letters from people asking for help, those that are in print, and you can tell it's a form letter, aren't near as beneficial as somebody who sits down and writes a letter. So,
word processors always want to correct you something.
Word processors, yes, Neil.
I know it's one of those things that my daughter went through, and I've known some other parents, I know Lance's son is looking at it too. When they get letters from these colleges to recruit them or try to get them to, one of the first things I've seen them do and I've heard them do is they check that signature on that letter to see if it's real.
See if it's written, printed.
That
There you go.
means something to them because they aren't used to that. I do feel sorry for the kids because, I mean, I've got a stack of letters that I got when I was in college, and it's fun to go back and read through those. But like you say, these kids today, they're never going to be able to go back and
Right.
reread
Right.
or get the encouragement.
Maybe if, we brought Jerry Barber down years ago to talk to us about trying to hire an interim. And one thing I got from Jerry said, I always like to get a mustard seed from any sermon or any class. So if you can get a mustard seed tonight, maybe one thing is go home and write a letter to whoever you're thinking about, or write a note. Now I know this morning we texted each other, but I'm telling you tonight, write a letter, write a card to someone that you're thinking about and give them an encouragement. We're talking about listening intently. One of those things that we need to do if we're talking to whoever we're talking to, grandkids, great-grandkids, to listen to them. You can talk about your experiences, but then you're going to see them fade away pretty quick. You need to listen. My question to you, a lot of this, or some of this at least, came out of the grandparents class that I taught several years ago. I had never taught a grandparents class, hadn't been a grandparent before until we started having grandkids, so, it was something new. Robert came in tonight and said, "Oh, well, I've never heard a sermon on grandparents." I said, "Well, I hadn't either, so we're going to see how it goes." But I do like the dialogue, and I'm just trying to get into your mind to remember and to spur you on to have communication with someone that you have influence over. But one of these things is listening. I think we all have a hard time. Robert and I both had a mother that, she didn't talk very much except from dawn to dusk, and then after that somewhat, but we come by it naturally. But listening, just stopping to listen, is harder to do. So I would encourage you, when you're in those conversations and you're telling everybody about you, listen to them. Do you know their favorite color? Do you know their favorite book? Do you know what they like to do, what they like to read? What do you know about your grandkids or your great-grandkids or nieces or nephews or whoever? What do you know about them? Do they know more about you than you know about them? Maybe it's because you've talked more than you've listened. Understanding may be difficult. I have a lot of things I don't understand today, and I don't want to get off on this particularly, but this is one thing I don't understand. I understand why everybody, men and women today, want to be tattooed. I don't understand that. There's just a lot of things I don't understand. Sometimes it's difficult to understand where the kids are coming from, of what they're doing, why they're involved in what they're doing. Why are you doing? Why are you paying attention to that? We don't always know what's going on at that time. I want to read you a quote. I try to give credit when I steal somebody else's material, except when it's Robert's, and then I don't give him any credit. But this guy wrote Christ Culture in the Generation Gap. It is a little dated, but if anything, it's only worse today, okay? He had a conversation with his grandmother about a song, and it was a terrible song. I won't go into it, but he was trying to justify why he thought this was something good, and she didn't buy it. And so this is the end of the conversation. This conversation with my grandmother illustrates a broader issue. Younger Christians often feel their elders are out of touch, behind the times, chained to antiquated notions of proper behavior. At worst, they are ill-equipped to do good work for the gospel because they refuse to engage the culture of Christ. At the same time, older Christians often view younger generations as disrespectful, uncommitted to biblical holiness, or generally unwilling to hoe the hard row of Christian discipleship. At worst, they are compromisers who sacrifice faithfulness in order to be accepted by the broader culture. Central to my disagreement with my grandmother was this: I believe that to be a faithful Christian, I needed to engage this sort of cultural offering. She believed that to be a faithful Christian, I needed to flee far and fast from that. That is the perspective that is different. I want you to do one thing for me tonight so you'll remember this. Hold your hand up in the air. Everybody do it. Everybody's going to do it. Get your finger up. And then I want you to start going clockwise. Look up and go clockwise. That's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go clockwise. Now slowly pull your hand down. Keep going clockwise. Keep going clockwise. Pull your hand down. Which way are you going now? You're going counterclockwise. That's the same hand. Up here, I'm clockwise. Down here, I'm counterclockwise. It's a matter of perspective. What I want you to see tonight is that you've got to pay attention. You've got to communicate. You've got to listen. You've got to know where the barriers are and what you can communicate. Different perspectives. Go home and keep trying that, and you'll figure out, it does work that way. One generation shall commend your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. Have you done that job? Have we done that job? Have we commended God's works to the next generation or the generation past that? Or to those people that we have in our influence? Maybe we haven't done as good as we could. Maybe we need to try to think how we can work on that. And I'm hoping that this will help to spur us on tonight. Be careful. Remember the Pharisees? Jesus said, you listen to the law and you do what they tell you. Be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they teach, what they preach. When you're talking, do your grandkids or great-grandkids or who you're talking to see that you are walking or you're preaching what you're teaching? Do they see your life that way? Perhaps they do, perhaps they don't. That must be my last one. If that has helped anyone tonight, we hope you will consider it. We were put here to pass on from generation to generation. Only you can decide in your life, your family, if you've done that. And if you haven't, then you need to work on it. I gave you some pitfalls tonight. I gave you some good things. You think about how you can improve. If there's anyone here tonight that we could help, prayers, someone maybe that you've been considering even baptism again, we have that happen sometime. We're here to help you in any way that we can as we stand and sing.